This is Resident 104.4 FM, flipping marvellous, as always. I'm Nick Hennigan, and welcome to another slice of Literary London, where we talk about, well, things kind of literary and sort of Londony, generally. And for the sort of wide-eared for you, if you're listening in stereo, you may also know that we're recording this. We're in video as well. Yes, we're live. I'm waving my hands at you now, which is rather glorious because this time it is my privilege to say I am joined by the actor Jeffrey Holland. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Nice to see you. I mean, literally to see you. The video for this, if you want to see myself and Jeffrey in our gloriousness, will be on, as always, will be on bohemianbriton.com and various YouTube channels. But we're here to, I've got to say, hi, dear, hi.
Oh,
Jeff, of course, Jeffrey Holland. I mean, we do have a worldwide audience, but I'm sure everyone in the world has heard of a rather brilliant sitcom that I suppose, would you say it's the first brought you to fame? It was called
no,
High Tide.
fair comment. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
My name on the map and a name to the face, as it were. Yeah.
And it ran for years, didn't it? We'll talk about that in a bit as well. Because I'd be interested to know how. I mean, because we're both in West London as well, aren't we? And occasionally I bump into you at the local theatres and stuff. But we've never had a kind of a proper chat about things. But let's just talk about the show. It's called After All These Years, written by Giles Cole. And just tell us a little bit about that. It's running at the Tabard Theatre, which is in West London, and I'll give you the details of how you can get in touch with the Tabard later. Just tell us a bit about this show.
Well, it's a four-hander in as much as there are two couples, two married couples in it, and they've known each other for 40, 50 years. They've been together as a gang, as a group of friends, closely linked. They both couples were in show business. That's where they met. The two girls were chorus girls, dancers. One was a dance captain in charge of the group. The one of the men was the company manager and a stage manager. That was the part I play. And the other fellow was a comic, a stand-up comic, and they all worked together in Variety in summer season. And then they all left eventually when they got to that age, and then all worked together in a department store, which is a different world altogether. But they're still together, and the play is actually in three rather clever parts. It's the first scene is the two chaps talking in the pub over a pint, literally that. About their lives and their wives and whatever has happened in the past. The second scene is the ladies doing exactly the same thing in one of their apartments, over a gin and tonic and some nibbles. Then there's an interval, and then in the third part of the play, it's 2 years later, and everything has changed. Their relationships have gone down different routes. And the things happen that you didn't expect to happen, and everything completely has changed with their relationships to each other and with each other. So it's worth the wait, I promise you.
It sounds fantastic. I mean, I've not actually seen it yet. I know it's your press night tonight, I believe, and I'm coming in on Friday. And it's already done rather well, hasn't it? You sort of won awards at the Brighton Fringe, I think, and you've
Did
been.
it last summer? Yes, it won best new piece. I can't remember the exact title, but it was the best new work, and won an award for that at the Brighton Fringe. And we did 2 weeks at the Jermyn Street Theatre in London with it, the back end of last year, and here we are at the Tabard.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I love a little space as well, isn't it? The Tabard. I mean, I think the first time I went there, actually, there weren't any seats. I mean, you just it was a black box and doing all sorts of experimental theatre. But the couple that run that have done a great job there.
They do indeed. I started my one-man show off there years ago, and it's the perfect little space for it, and it's so adaptable and versatile as a little theatre. You can do anything there.
It is kind of one of the glories of London, isn't it? And it seems to be only London that has these little establishments, like pub theatre. We know about pub theatre. I mean, I'm from Birmingham originally, and I did a show that got picked up. In fact, you're watching, you can see on the, I think, on Henry V Line of England, which got picked up by Jasper Carrot's management, would you believe, and taken to the Edinburgh Festival back in 1992. And what blew me away was, I have never been to the Edinburgh Fringe before. What blew me away was not just the Edinburgh Festival, it was the fact there was so much theatre everywhere. And then I'm thinking, Birmingham, Britain's second city, hadn't got a single pub theatre. So that's how I got messed up in theatre. But I mean, London's kind of got a worldwide reputation for theatre, hasn't it? And those smaller spaces above pubs are where some brilliant new work can be made and created.
That's very true.
And what about yourself then, Jeffrey? So are you a local? Are you a Londoner originally?
No, I'm from the Midlands. You may notice in the accent occasionally slips.
Oh, yeah.
When I drink or I'll get cross, you know.
And
Uh, well,
were your family sort of into theatre? Is that what got you involved?
no, I got involved with amateur theatre simply because I was bored stiff with going to a boring youth club every Sunday with my friend, and he found this amateur dramatic society for under 21s, and we went along, and because he told me the girls were all very, very pretty, so you know, I got started due to my raging hormones. So that's how I got into acting in the first place, and you know, I realised I loved it, and you know, there was nothing really else I wanted to do. So when the time came right, I made the move and went pro. So
And
here
did you train? Did you go to drama school?
I trained at the Birmingham School of Speech and Drama for 3 years in the mid-60s. And I was very lucky to get a really good grounding there. And then I went straight into rep at Coventry, at the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry. So I learned my trade, literally.
Yes, I worked with an actor called Paul Henry, who also trained at Birmingham. Chappies, he's talking about Miss Chappies. Also trained. He was in a drama soap that ran in the UK for a long time called Crossroads,
Yes.
which of course is currently trendy again, or trending again, because Russell T Davies, the creator of Doctor Who, has written a drama about Noel Gordon, who I also kind of knew a little bit, called Nolly, which is worth checking out for. And then, so you were doing, I mean, the rep system for those that, and I, you know, the rep was kind of an interesting system, wasn't it? So it meant you were an actor and you worked kind of full time for a theatre and then did lots and lots of different shows. That must have been fairly interesting.
It was interesting. It was also exhausting because, you know, the older you got, the more worn out you were. I was a very, very young man in my early 20s. I was only 22 when I joined the company, and I worked there for nearly 5 years and literally learned my trade. I did everything, you name it, from Agatha Christie to pantomime, musicals, you know, the lot. It was a wonderful grounding for me to learn my trade that way. And yeah, and you rehearse the play, excuse me, you played a play for 3 weeks. And once the play had opened, you started rehearsals for the next one. So you were rehearsing during the day for the next play while you were playing another one in the evening. And then you were also thinking about the one that came after the next one. So you knew what you were up for. You know, it was a very, very busy way of life. And, you know, it stood me in very good stead for anything that people throw at me these days. You know, if I could do that, I can do anything.
Yeah, I mean, that does sound incredibly exhausting as well. And I won't state the obvious question about how did you remember the words? So, you know, like, what show am I on now? And because that was, yes, because it used to be weekly rep, didn't it? Didn't they used to do it once every week, going back even?
Oh, yeah, there was weekly rep, yes, but that was before my time. When I went into rep, it was 3 weekly, thank goodness. So we had 3 for each play.
I mean, is there anything around with younger actors? Is there? I suppose there's nothing kind of similar to that nowadays, is there?
What's that?
That training ground that you had. I mean, what would a young actor be doing nowadays? I guess not that.
Because kids coming out of drama school these days, you know, they're not trained in the same way I was. Sadly, they don't seem to train them in voice production these days. You know, I was trained in the proper way to produce a voice to fill a theatre and reach the back of the gods. Little deaf old lady who's sitting at the back of the gods, you know, on a Wednesday afternoon. She wants to hear you as well, and you've got to project your voice. And that was a technique that I was taught, and they don't seem to use that anymore because the use of amplification now is so available, as it were. And kids come out of drama school expected to go straight into EastEnders or something, or whatever, Emmerdale, and become famous for
Yeah.
the sake of it. But I just wanted to earn a living and be an actor, and I got my wish, and I'm still here.
Yeah, fantastic. It's a great story. And how did the television thing come along? I mean, it was was it Perry and Croft who wrote those kind of sitcoms during was it 70s, I suppose it would have been, would it? 70s and 80s. Um,
1975, I was recruited to go and audition for the Dad's Army stage show, which was being produced and put on at the Shaftesbury Theatre in London's West End by Perry and Croft, directed by Roger Redfern, who actually had worked with me at Coventry. So he knew me and he knew what I was capable of, and he thought I could be very useful to the show. And I went and auditioned for Perry and Croft, and I got the job. And I spent, a lovely, wonderful year with that show, 6 months in the West End at the Shaftesbury Theatre. And then we went on national tour with the show for 6 months after that, in the early months of 1976. And I was asked to play Private Walker, the Spiv. And there I was, because I'd understudied it. And John Barden was playing it in the West End because James Beck had died 2 years previously. And they put the character back in, played by John Barden, because he was such a good foil for Captain Mannering. And all the TV cast were there, except John Laurie, sadly, because he was rather frail and he didn't want to leave his wife to do that. So he was replaced with a look and sound alike. And then I was playing Private Walker at the age of 29. I was a member of Captain Mannering's platoon. It was fantastic. Great job for me. Wonderful.
that
And then
must,
that's his history with Perry and Croft. I've guested in, after that, in the next few years, I guested in It Ain't Half Hot, Mum. I guested in Are You Being Served? I even did an episode of the final series of Dad's Army. I played an army truck driver in that. It's one of those don't blink or you'll miss me opportunity. There I am, large. And then when Heidi High came along, they wrote Spike with me in mind. So because they knew me so well, then you see, they'd used me a lot, knew my capabilities, and Spike was what put me on the map. Wonderful.
it's kind of lovely when that happens. I know we've just lost recently poor old Ian Lavender, who was who played Private Pike in Dad's Army, and I kind of knew him a little bit. He said the thing that struck him mainly about doing Dad's Army, and I guess it must have been a bit similar for you. He was quite a young actor when he first took on the TV role, and he said I was there with all these kind of gods of film, the kind of the Lemisier and Arthur Lowe, all these people. He said I'd watched in films as it was as a boy, and here I am sort of working with them. I guess that must be fairly intimidating, but I'm also guessing they would have been fairly nice about it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's a lovely story there, because when I was in the ensemble company and in the West End version of the show, I was asked to understudy Private Walker and Private Pike in Lavender's part, and I had to go on once for Ian. He was not available for a Wednesday matinee one week. And so I knew this was coming up, and I put the uniform on, I put the scarf. I'm the only other actor in the country ever, in the world even, I think, to have worn that Aston Villa scarf as Pike. So, I put the hat on with the little pointy bits, put the scarf on it. All the words came out in the right order. Everyone got their right cues. But I never got a single laugh all afternoon. That audience was so unforgiving because I was not Ian Lavender. Who's that stranger up there pretending to be Private Pike? It's not him. The only laughs I got were from the boys and girls on the stage behind me, who were sniggering out their sleeves because I wasn't getting laughs. An experience that. But then came the national tour, and because I understudied Walker as well, although I played the part, I knew the lines, and they asked me to play the part because they saved a salary and they didn't have to rehearse.
Yeah.
They did. They're all
Practicalities of theatre, of course, at the end. Yeah, it was, I mean, iconic, really, wasn't it? I wonder whether those all I wonder if it's because of obviously talent aside or talent accepted, the fact that those audiences were so huge, certainly in the UK, that when you'd only got, I suppose, three channels. I suppose I remember when I was a lad, there were only two channels, and because the audiences were huge, weren't they? I mean, millions and millions of people will watch you every week.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what happened. And it was the same with Heidi High for us when we started in 1980. There were only three channels then. And we were pulling at our peak, a couple of years later, we were pulling 19 million viewers a week for each show. You can't do that now. It's impossible, with the share of the channels. We've got 700 and some odd now available. But we only had three then, and then there was four, and it's amazing time to have lived through.
Yeah, isn't it just? I mean, I know I used to start writing when the telly shut down at midnight. It wouldn't happen now. I'm Nick Hennigan. This is Literary London on Resonance 104.4 FM. We're also on Envision in beautiful, sort of nearly Technicolor on bohemianbriton.com. I'm in the company of Geoffrey Holland, the actor who is performing in a show called After All These Years by Giles Cole, which is at the Tabard Theatre in West London in Chiswick. I'll give you the details later on. I mean, how did it? How was? Oh, I must just say hello to Kathy, California. Thank you for getting in touch. Kathy emails every week. Although apparently, yes, she said it's been a bit rough this week in California. So if you're in California, take care of yourselves. Kath always used to listen on the beach, but apparently they've had a bit of bad weather. And also hello to Joanne, who is in South Africa. Hello, Joanne. Thank you. That's my regular calls. I tend to email every week just to say hello. So hello. Geoffrey Holland. So talking the actor. There was Heidi High. You rang my lord. How was it as a young actor? And as you say, you really wanted to be an actor. That was your aspiration. It wasn't to be famous. How did it sit suddenly becoming famous? That must have been a slightly surreal experience when you've got, let's say, 18.5 million people looking at you every week. How did that work? How did that cope? How did you cope with that?
It took me completely by surprise because in 1980, when the first series went out, after episode 3 had aired, 3 weeks into it, literally, I was in Watford doing some shopping with my then wife, and we were walking down the high street in Watford, and I heard somebody shout, "Heidi High!" And I thought, my God, I've been recognised. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Because it had never happened to me before, and there was no reason for it to. But I wore big John Major style glasses in those days. I've always worn glasses. And I thought, well, this was my disguise, my Clark Kent, and nobody would know who I was. But as I thought, somebody's recognised me, and how do I react? Oh my God, I've got to be nice, be nice, be nice, smile. So I turned round to roughly where the voice had come from across the street, and it wasn't me he was shouting at. This young lad was shouting Heidi High to his mate, who was up the street just behind me. It had taken off that quickly. And people were shouting Heidi High to each other in the street, and I thought it was me. But I got used to it eventually. I'm better now. But
Yes, it can be a double-edged sword, can't it, being famous? I know I had a tiny slice of it when I was on the radio in Birmingham at BR&B and then WM. And it was great for about a week. And then, I was just a voice. It wasn't even a face. Well, as you can see, I've got the perfect face for radio. Hey, thank you. Yes, I found it. I also understand why there are so many members clubs in London, because you can go there and people don't snap you, and you don't have to worry about yes, I'm about to say how much. I was about to break your confidence myself then. And what happened? So you did Heidi High, and then you rang my lord came along. That was from the same stable, presumably.
Yes. We were during the penultimate series of Heidi High in 1986. One day during rehearsals, Jimmy Perry and David Croft got Paul Shane and Sue Pollard and myself together and said, "Would you please stay behind when rehearsals finishes, because we'd like to have a little chat with the three of you." And we all thought, "Oh God, what have we done? Are we getting the sack? What's happened?" We had no idea. We were quite struggling. But afterwards, everyone was dismissed and they sat us down. And then they told us that the following year, 87, would be the final series of Heidi High. They'd written it out. They'd written all the gags and wheezes that they could glean from their experience in the holiday camps themselves. and they started to make things up, and it wasn't going to be quite as funny. So they thought they'd knock it on the head while it was, really leave them wanting, as it were. But having said that, they'd got an idea for another program. They got a thing that they wanted to do, like virtually a comedy version of Upstairs, Downstairs to start off with. That's how it sort of started off as an idea, with us playing the downstairs staff. Me, the footman, Paul as the butler, and Sue as the maid, who also happened to be the butler's daughter, as it turned out. But they set it. The original idea was to set it in the abdication years, during the 30s. And Mary Husband, who designed all David Croft's costumes for his various shows, said, no, don't set it in the 30s. Set it in the 20s, because the costumes for the ladies would be so gorgeous and glamorous and exuberant and full of style, as indeed for the men in some ways, but, particularly for the ladies, the 20s was wonderful. And so they did. They brought it back into the 1920s, just before the Great Wall Street crash. So they set it in 1927. And it was, well, if you know the show, what a success it was. A pity they don't repeat it, sadly, because it's 50 minutes long. That's probably the reason why. It was the first sitcom that became a 50-minute show, because David wanted to get the opportunity to sell it abroad, and with a commercial break, you could make it into an hour. That was a theory, but it was a 50-minute. And we did 4 series of 26 50-minute episodes over the next 4 years of that, and that's why they wanted to keep us together, because they knew that we were friends, which indeed we were, and Sue and I are still very close, and they liked what we did together, and we were so different, I think, as individuals, physically, visually, as well as our personalities, and that was the chemistry that worked so well between us. And it proved itself again in You Rang My Lord that they were right, and it did work. It was a fabulous show, and it was the production values were so high. It was like working in a real house. It was 3-dimensional, that house. We did half the show pre-recorded with the sets at the back of the studio the audience couldn't see, and then in the second week we recorded the scenes that the audience could see at the front. We had obviously the kitchen scene and the hallway and the study and the various other little bits. So they put it all together like that. But it was a wonderful show to work on. Really a fantastic opportunity. Great part for me as James Twelvetrees, the footman, the snotty footman, biggest snob in the house, and he knew his place and he expected everyone else to know theirs. And of course, it was the butt of all the jokes. It was virtually a straight role for me within the comedy framework of the piece. Virtually a straight role. So it was nice to stretch a few acting muscles I hadn't stretched for a while. That was nice.
And lots of reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a show they don't show that nowadays. As you say, 50 minutes, that's quite radical, isn't it? What did you think that might go on, or did everyone think that might go on? 3 seasons. I know there was that great quote that I heard about TV comedy called "Jumping the Shark," which goes back to the days of Happy Days, which is an American sitcom with the Fonz and his Henry Winkler, and the parody they made. It was kind of I think it was sort of gossip I heard in Hollywood that the term "jumping the shark" meant that they'd basically run out of ideas. So many, but it was so successful they just kept trying to churn it out. And there's one episode where they have the Fonz jumping over a shark. It was so tenuous that I've heard that term a few times from 1 or 2 of my mates in Hollywood, talking to jump on the shark series, which means that I suppose the clever thing with Perry and Croft is that they knew when to end. Was You Rang My Lord? Were there any chances of that going on, or was it a similar call?
No, I think they run out of ideas, and they weren't getting much support from the upper floors at the time as well. BBC was changing, and we moved on into Oh Dr. Beeching a couple of years later, and things were very, very different. The world was changing. In the mid-90s, the world was changing. Comedy was changing. The BBC was changing. And that kind of comedy was no longer required. Thank you very much. It was all going down the road of stuff like Men Behaving Badly, which was slightly more adult, shall we say. Nothing wrong with it. It was a brilliantly written show and beautifully played by the able cast. But it was going in that direction, and the David Croft kind of family comedy, if you like, good, clean family fun, was no longer required. Thank you very much. It was very sad, but that's life. That's the way it goes.
And what did you do? How did it take you? Did you manage to get? Oh, sorry. Go on. Sorry.
Still talking about it, though, aren't we? 40 odd years later, we're still talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the mark of great quality. And so, what happened after that? Presume did you go back to the theatre, or were you doing other television mainly?
Pretty much, no. I haven't really done any television apart from interviews and stuff like that since then. But mostly my work is in the theatre now. Judy and I, we're working together in this play, this one we're talking about, the Tabard. And we've done a lot of stuff together over the years, over the last 20 years. In fact, we've done pantomimes together. We've done touring shows around the country, and here we are again working together as man and wife.
That's fantastic.
Great fun.
Do you have a preference? I mean, you must get asked that all the time. Would you prefer theatre or TV?
Most actors would tell you that they prefer the live theatre. I certainly do. Particularly when you're doing comedy, because you're relying on the audience to laugh in the right places, and you can feed off that. It's a great adrenaline buzz. Drama's good too when you get the silences as opposed to the laughs. They're listening to you, and it's terrific. I mean, television's lovely. I mean, it's nice, but if you make a mistake, you could do it again.
Yeah.
And that was a very rare thing in a David Croft show, because David was quite, a strict worker, and you knew where you stood with him. You got on with it, so you did the job. You didn't get many mistakes. There are very few David Croft outtakes available. Just didn't do them. And we got on with it. But it's the theatre, I think, is our main love. Certainly.
And I do wonder, because we're all so connected now, that hopefully the swing back, because there is that thing about the audience being almost the other cast member, as you say, because it's so organic and every night's different.
It is different, because you get a different audience and you get different reactions, different balance every night. So you go out there fresh, although you're doing the same thing. It's different, but the same.
It's lovely to chat to you. We've run out of time, which is amazing. We could go for hours, actually. That's always the case with this. So the production is called After All These Years. It's written by Giles Cole. It's starring Geoffrey Holland, and of course the lovely wife Judy Buxton. And who else is in it offhand? I haven't got my little flyer with me.
Graham Partney and Carol Ball.
Brilliant.
Oh yes.
And there's a lot of television experience amongst all of you. You've all kind of done other things, haven't you? Which is glorious, really. If you'd like to know any more, Theatre at the Tabard, which is on Bath Road in Chiswick, it's probably best to check out their website at tabard.org.uk. The show runs, depending on when you're listening to this. This is now, because these little podcasts and videos hang on forever. But if you want to know any more about Geoffrey, have you got a personal website, Geoffrey, or is it just www.geoffreyholland.co.uk? It's as simple as that. Yeah. Brilliant. geoffreyholland.co.uk, or for After All These Years, tabard.org.uk. And of course, as always, if you'd like to get in touch, you can do. It's radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. It's probably still the best email address, radio@mavericktheatre.co.uk. Well, I've got my own now. It's nick@bohemianbriton.com. Woo! Get me, nick@bohemianbriton.com. So thank you so much again for your time, Geoffrey, and your recollections. And good luck with the show. I shall see you. I'll see you in the bar afterwards on Friday. Brilliant. And I shall see you next time. Thank you for listening, stroke watching on bohemianbriton.com. I'm Nick Hennigan. This is Literary London on Resonance 104.4 FM.